Wake up, Mr. West. Hello and welcome to the Minority Arts Appreciation Society podcast, where we're ticking all the boxes. Today we have an event. We're going to be doing a Kanye West retrospective. We'll be covering every single Kanye album, including Kids See Ghosts, which is, technically a Kanye album. We're not including Watch the Throne because I don't like Jay-Z, and that's like my only justification. I like Kid Cudi more than Jay-Z, so I just don't want to talk about Watch the Throne. Everyone's heard N-words in Paris, and that's Watch the Throne. So there you go. Anyway, so we'll be splitting this up into kind of three eras. Each episode will be split into two. The first era will be the college era, then the dark fantasy era, then the God era.
Damn.
Ascending through the ranks of Kanye's mind as we go along. So I'm Josh, and I lead the music discussions, and we've also got Mattie here, who
leads the film discussions.
The first album we're going to be talking about is The College Dropout, and I just want to give like a tad bit of like context of like Kanye's sort of like humble beginnings. I think it's interesting to start with Kanye's parents, because I think throughout the retrospective, I think Kanye gets more cerebral and strange as his albums go along, and more introspective and personal. I think at the beginning it starts off at a very like socially conscious level, like he's speaking about Chicago and politics, and by the end, he's really like in his head, and that's where you are. So I think it'd be interesting to do sort of like a psychoanalysis / just following his style and motifs and themes, right? So his parents, his mother Donda West was a professor of English. I think Kanye even had to live in China for a bit when she moved there for work. So you get to see Kanye really did have this sort of like academic background, and you can kind of see him obviously rebelling against that with the College Dropout, right? So that kind of gives some context of like where Kanye's coming from. Like there was a bit of a struggle with his upbringing, like he does talk about that, but there is a sort of like weird limbo, like working class, middle class kind of place he's coming from. His father was a Black Panther, interestingly, which I'm sure possibly inspired, Kanye with the kind of more political stuff, especially in his earlier work. He's very class conscious and and for all of his work, he's very race conscious. Kanye himself was a college dropout. He had a scholarship to study painting at like Chicago's Academy of Art, but he switched to English at Chicago State University. And then, I think he just got super into music. He'd been making music since he was like 11 or 12. I think the first rap that he penned was called Green Eggs and Ham, which sounds awesome. I want to hear that.
That's cute as fuck.
It is very cute. And he dropped out to go do music. So that's, that's the humble beginnings of Kanye, and as we go along, context bit is going to get more and more cluttered and messed up. This is the simple, most like wholesome context we're going to get for the rest of the retrospective.
The thing about this shit is that I'm fascinated by the fact that it feels like it has an intention to it. Like just listening to it and going, oh, I can understand this. Like there's something to grapple with here.
You feel like it's like literature or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can enjoy the life of Pablo for its insanity, but you can't pretend that album has a coherent and cohesive central theme. Not that this album is just one theme, like executed well. He covers lots of topics, but I feel like there's some method here. And Life of Pablo and his later stuff, to me, it just seems all madness.
Well, I think going throughout, we'll find that each album has a very distinct personality, which I really love about Kanye. What's really weird is I've heard every Kanye album, but as you'll hear, I don't love all of them, and my opinions are very like varied. But I adore Kanye for just every album is so distinct, and going through, it's going to be really fun to pin down the specific like aesthetic avenues. He gets really obsessed with and then dashes away for a bit, and the stuff that sustains. And secondly, like before we get into your history, I think this first episode is going to be the easiest episode. I think literally every episode after this, there's either going to be a fight or both of us kind of scratching our head. I don't think there's going to be. I don't know what you think about these first two albums because we haven't talked about it yet. But I'm very confident that you enjoyed them, and this is going to be an uncontroversial episode. Anyway, what is your history with Kanye?
Yeah, just off what you said, if there are going to be any albums I like from the whole of Kanye's discography, just based on clout and years, nearing decades of positive opinions for these albums, it is going to be these albums that I love. History with Kanye's always been a scary one for me, mainly because when I got into music, I was about 17. Properly started getting into music and, listening to albums actually regularly. So by that time, Kanye had a scary amount of albums. And I think it was when I turned about 18, I was like, damn, I'm either going to go through Björk's entire discography or Kanye's. And I picked Björk. I'm glad I picked Björk because I fucking love Björk. But at the same time, it has left a gaping hole. And of course, that hole was partially filled by listening to The Life of Pablo for the podcast a few months ago, which was a great experience. But at the same time, yeah, it's just always been a cloud over me, I would say, like this thing. I've always had the College Dropout saved in my albums. Every time for the past 3 years, I've scrolled through my albums, I've seen it and gone, maybe today, and then gone, no, and just left it. So here we are.
Were you intimidated by it? Were you worried you wouldn't like it?
I don't think I wasn't worried I wouldn't like it. Well, actually, maybe partially, because if I didn't like the first album, I would feel very hesitant about going on and listening to 8 further albums by the same artist. Just especially with all the kind of weight behind it. Yeah, there's just kind of something about going through an artist's discography who is so significant. I think probably as an individual, probably Beyonce. Okay, under Beyonce, I would say Kanye is probably the single biggest individual music artist of the 21st century. And going through that discography is terrifying to me.
Yeah, I don't think that's a controversial claim. I think it's the only since 2000, from 2004, he's remained relevant.
That's very true. Beyonce
never been a point where it's I think even Beyonce, I think she revived her career a bit with Lemonade. Obviously, she's Beyonce, everyone knows her, but in terms of
consistency,
Kanye's being seen as cutting edge constantly. Whereas, he's both got the clout, but also the respect. He's really respected. He's in the same conversations as people like Radiohead. People take him really seriously.
Yeah, that's really true. So yeah, kind of exactly everything you just said means that getting into an artist like that's discography is it's just so much to do. And process. And at the time you're kind of I was still an early music fan, so I was kind of figuring out my opinions wasn't the easiest thing as well. So yeah, just coming to grips with it all was a lot. But I'm glad we're doing it in this way because it's turned it into such a digestible and reasonable way of discussing it and thinking about it.
It was also the only way I could literally force you every kind of album. Great fun for me. I won't ask about your history every time, but I think before each album, I'll ask what your preconceived notions of the album were, or if you've heard of a specific album before. I'm really interested in what you think these albums are as someone who hasn't heard them yet.
So, should I do that for the College Dropout?
Go for it, yeah.
Yeah, so this, for me, this was the one that it seemed preppy, and it had attitude. And and this sort of innocence to it, because it's seen as so great, but also pre like insane Kanye. So to me, it just seems like this album made by this like 20 something who like has a genuine vision, but also it's a lot more like casual and carefree. Yeah, I'd say that's the way I viewed it. Like the college, I think the title, the college dropout, like just gives it that air of like, yeah, inherent like rebelliousness, and also just like a lack of care for kind of convention. So that's kind of the way I saw it.
Awesome. Well, I mean, let's jump into discussing the album then. I'll kind of start with my own kind of history. Like, I've been a huge Kanye fan for a really long time, as I've already talked about. And I've been listening to the College Dropout since I was about, yeah, like 14 and 15, maybe 5 years now or so. And I really enjoy this album. I think it's an odd one for me because it's sort of treated as, it's not uncommon that you'll see this referred to as the best album in his discography. I don't personally think it's his best album, but that's a really popular opinion that this is the best Kanye album. And
It's like either this or Dark Twisted Fantasy.
but I always have like slight reservations. Like, it's not as perfect as I feel like it's hyped up to be, but it's still like a complete classic and a great album. I think what's interesting in College Dropout that's surprising is that you always have this narrative that like at some point Kanye was a super like conscientious social political rapper who's like really heady and lyrical, and then he kind of devolves into like an egomaniac. And I think it's certainly true that he's more socially conscious in this album. But I do think what's interesting is there is that ego. It's already there. Like, I don't know if you felt surprised by this, but like you can kind of really see what Kanye would become here, but it's just like not at the forefront yet. But I think one thing I was happily surprised about when I first heard this years ago was, oh, this is still fun. Like, I thought this was gonna feel like hip hop homework. Like, gotta listen to NWA to learn the hip hop history. But this was like, oh no, this is still really fun.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. Yeah, I think the thing with Kanye that I find is that there's ego on this album, but like hip hop being a genre so famous for its ego, the thing I've always found with that though, like, is you can have all the ego you want in hip hop. You just have to have the flow and the lyrical skill to get away with it, and that's the thing this album has that I feel like The Life of Pablo didn't. I'm not just going to compare these works of The Life of Pablo the whole time, but yeah, that's where this album succeeds so much, is kind of the bars and the skits that he puts in are so funny and so clever that the braggadociousness has like a foundation, like all great braggadocious hip hop lyrics do. And it's impossible now to not, especially having not heard any other Kanye albums, to not look at this in the light of present Kanye. I mean, who even knows what present Kanye is? But the image of him as this egomaniac. But really, when I listened to this, I tried incredibly hard to just come into this as just like, this is just a hip hop album released by a dude who's friends with Jay-Z in the 2000s. But a fascinating thing that I found when I listened to this album was the influences that I could hear from it. Like, understanding now where Chance the Rapper is coming from, like, so much more. It was so exciting, and just so many other artists today, and yeah, it was so enjoyable. And I think the thing with that's so interesting is that it's this album that they sound like, and this early stuff that they sound like, and not his later stuff.
Yeah, I think that's pretty true. I think I'm always awestruck at how, yeah, inspirational this album, or influential rather, this album would become. I mean, in my opinion, even more so the second album, and we'll get there when we get there. But you could hear kind of the seeds of Brockhamptons and Chance the Rappers and Injured Reserves. And I don't think they'd exist without Kanye.
Oh God, no!
It's sort of insane how Kanye really like we get more of this in the second album. I think this first album really does sound like a lot of what was coming out in the time. Like this is the time of like Common and Talib Kweli, things like this kind of rap was more of the norm. Like this is before we hit the dredges of the Bling era. But even so, Kanye's kind of chipmunk sample vocals and sped up and like fun, quirky, kind of almost like hipster energy. He was known for wearing like polo shirts, and he wanted to rap about like Jesus and like workout plans, and he was just a weirdo. he wasn't like he reminds me a bit of like JPEG Mafia, and like he wasn't a weirdo, like he's a nerdy guy. It's just like he's an off-kilter guy who's still like cool. Like it wasn't like a nerd rap kind of thing. Someone like Milo. Kanye isn't going for that underground shit. Like he's really going for the mainstream, but with his own sort of like, he's a weirdo.
And just to get into my like overall thoughts on the album as well. This is a fucking classic, but I actually, similarly to you, have like some reservations about it. I think the album like constantly builds up momentum and then kills it with a specific song. So there'll be these like great runs of really fun, energetic songs. I think to give an example of that, like the new workout plan, then slow jams, and then breathe in, breathe, and which are two incredible songs. Honestly, this fucking album is just a vessel for the new workout plan. That song is incredible. This album
it's a highlight.
This album is a sandwich, and everything else is the bread. The new workout plan is the fucking meat in the middle. Oh my god.
I think what I love about new workout plan is so Kanye, but like it was one of those tracks that it's starting to define what Kanye is. Like, there's an amazing part where he's like, "Ladies and gentlemen, allow myself to introduce myself," and it's just like so funny and like. But there's also this sense of slightly self-aware, poking fun at himself a little bit,
Yeah, and it's just so ridiculous, and it goes to all these places you would never expect. Like in the last half, you just have this auto-tuned voice saying new workout plan and fucking Kanye scatting over it, which only shows up on this song, and it's just amazing. But and then it goes on into slow jams, which is amazing.
I adore Jamie Foxx on these two albums.
I know! Oh my god! Where did this come from? And where has it gone? But when that fucking first hook comes in, after the skit in the beginning, oh my goodness, it blew my mind. 100%. But then, fucking Breathe In, Breathe Out comes on. I don't know what. This song does nothing for me. And
you're not a big Ludacris fan?
No, can't say I've been hitting up Ludacris all this time. Ludacris has been filling up the Kanye void for me all these years. But just that hook comes in, that breathe in, breathe out comes in from nowhere, and the beat is so fucking like dead. I was like, did you pay any did you? I mean, like obviously he paid attention when he made this, but I just going from that intensity to something that just sounds really playful. You can go from something extremely intense to something a lot more mellow. That works very well. But I think when you go from something that's just kind of like a meme to go to a meme track kind of thing sounding, it just doesn't really work. And then again, then it goes back into School Spirit, which is awesome. But I just find that the album constantly builds and drops. It's more of a problem in the second half than in the first, but a lot like the songs on this are incredible for the most part.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Like I think I find that like Jesus, even though Jesus Walks is like one of his most popular songs, that is one of those like hitting the brakes moment. I don't love this as much as the rest of the album. Never Let Me Down, Get 'Em High. Like these are cool songs, but they do kind of feel a bit like filler. Honestly, I think once you get to the back half, like once School Spirit kicks in, the album's just gone. Like it's so good from that point on for me, and it never really slows down. But there is like slight breaks kicking in the middle, slight filler. But again, nothing like bad at all. Just like not as amazing as stuff like, Through the Wire, Old School Spirit. Like,
Yeah. So this kind of follows on from what I said earlier about how people are influenced from Kanye so much. One thing this album has made me appreciate is just the diversity of hip hop that has come from this era. I feel like what really made me think about this was particularly people's voices and flows. Like, this isn't a comment on Kanye's flow or voice. I think it's a very unique way of rapping and a unique sound to his voice. But just in this era, I feel like there was a lot more kind of conformity and universality to how people like flowed and sounded. Like, a lot of these features just aren't particularly like unique. Whereas when you go, I feel like in the 2010s, there are so many fucking rappers who I can instantly recognize just even from the rhythm of how they sound, let alone their voice. Yeah, so that was just a huge thing for me. And also, yeah, even obviously hip hop has a long, varied sound to it, but I really feel like this era and Kanye's early work has essentially like born the incredible diversity of sound that we have in hip hop today. Not just from his early work as well, but obviously things like 808s and Heartbreak has had a huge influence on the mainstream sound of hip hop right now. But it was just fascinating to hear that and think about it.
yeah, and I think especially like as we go on, his more like eclectic sampling style on such like a mainstream level,
Yeah.
definitely like really formative for some of hip hop. I think to
Mm-hmm.
not make it sound like Kanye is the one antecedent to like everything that came after. Like, I do think he himself is inspired a lot by like Q-Tip and Tribe Called Quest.
Oh yeah.
I think his voice reminds me of Q-Tip sometimes. Like, he has a very like easygoing, naturally melodic rapping voice, which I adore. Which I think reminds me a lot of Q-Tip a little bit. Moving on, would you like to hit us with your 3 favorite tracks, a least favorite track, and whether or not you'd recommend the album?
Yeah, man. So I'll start off with All Falls Down. I adore the guitar sample on this. And the vocals on it are like gorgeous as well. It just has this like instantaneously like soulful feeling to it. But the kind of Latin flavor of the guitar makes it just completely unique and not this kind of cliche soulful sound. Yeah, it's just like a really, really sweet little track. I think I made this obvious as well, but the new workout plan is fucking phenomenal. Like, I feel like this was a song where Kanye just fucking let himself loose and do whatever, and it paid off so well. In a way that it doesn't work out when he does that for a whole fucking album. Um, awesome song. I've talked about it enough though. Um, I love School Spirit, man. School Spirit just gets me so much. Also, the skits around it, all the skits on this album are so fucking funny. They are so funny. I was tempted to list the fucking School Spirit skit 1 as my first favorite track because they make me laugh so much.
Yeah.
The stuff about like,
I'll be the smartest dead guy.
yeah, I'll be the smartest dead guy alive. I'll be 50 and still in school. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it was just...
and it's also like weird because it's such like insightful criticism of kind of the lie of social mobility in America and kind of how broken the education system is. It's really smart.
It really reminded me of ContraPoints' video on why I left academia. Like the same shit. It was the same shit that they were saying really to me. Like, just what am I doing? There's also another great line on this album is just when he says he tells his mama that he was done with college, and she says, "Oh, you graduated?" He says, "No, I was finished." Like, it's just such an amazing way of putting it.
Yeah.
Like that is as much as just deciding that you are done with something is as much finishing it as completing all 3 years is. Yeah, I just think that's awesome. Least favorite song, I've mentioned this before already, like Breathe In, Breathe Out. It's just whack, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I hate the beat. I hate like the vocal sample of Breathe In, Breathe Out. Like, the hook sucks. Everything. The feature, nah, not a fan.
But yeah, it's got some growness. Like, I always had a PhD pretty huge dick.
Yeah, I was like, for a minute, it fucked me up. I was like, wait, is it where that joke came from, or is this just the most cheap bar in human history?
But yeah, I like his manic breathing throughout the track, and yeah, I think it's a fun song. But yeah, I see why you wouldn't like it.
Yeah, of course I would recommend this. Like, you've heard this though. This is kind of the lonerism thing again. If you like music, you've heard this album. Or maybe you're like me. If you're like me, get over yourself and fucking listen to it. It's not that big a deal. It's really good. But like it's not fucking, I don't know, Caligula. Like, you'll be fine.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'll go through mine. All Falls Down is an absolutely stunning track and one of the best in Kanye's discography. I must have heard this like a million times, but it's just iconic Kanye. And it's like, if you need a quick case of why Kanye is considered a musical legend, despite his like current controversial larger than life standing now, this is one of the first examples you'd go to show why he has so much respect. It's a great track about chasing wealth and insecurity around that. There are some really amazing, memorable lines like, for all that paper, look how low we'll stoop. Even if you're in a Benz, you're still a nigga in a coupe. That's an amazing line. The line about she couldn't afford a car, so she named her daughter Alexis. That shit's hilarious. And yeah, some touching lines like the prettiest people say the ugliest things, and the people highest up got the lowest self-esteem. Like, he's really spitting here, and it's gorgeous. And you don't really see this like stern anti-capitalist streak in the later Kanye career, and I really love seeing it here. There's a real class consciousness, and it's really moving at points. It feels like something out of a Spike Lee film, especially that first track, We Don't Care. Then yeah, New Workout Plan. I'm completely with you. Like, I adore this track. It's one of the best hip hop songs ever, I'd say.
I'm
hilarious, fun, inventive. What I love most about this track is like how manic it is, and it sounds like he is playing like character. Like the way he intercuts the girls saying, and they're all playing like gross stereotypes. One of them's like a southerner who's like, I can date outside of the family now. It's almost like Grand Theft Auto levels of satire. Like, it's really funny. The six-pack Shakur line. I love, the strings that come in at the end. It sound like something out of like a horror film. Those strings are insane. And he does this all the time. We're just throwing like insane strings. I love it. We talked about that track to death. I think
iconic song.
Great track. Yeah.
Again, this album is a vessel for that song.
Well, yeah, and my last track on here, which is probably my favorite track on here, hands down, is Family Business. This is one of my favorite songs ever. I think it's achingly gorgeous and truly moving. And as someone who, and I'm sure all of us have memories like this, it looks back to the nostalgia of like large family gatherings and like dealing with innocence around, uncles being sent to prison or divorce and things like that, and just trying to bring a family together despite everything normally falling apart. This is such a moving track, and we see Kanye displaying really like positive masculinity here as well, with the kind of you can still love your man and be manly dog, which is one of those lines that really makes him stand out like in this era. Like, he talks a lot about in this album about how he wants to rap about more than just knives and guns, and shows that hip hop can be more than that. And this is one of those songs that, like, of course, you have people like Tribe, De La Soul doing this kind of stuff before, but riding in circles of people like Jay-Z and making shit like this, like, it's really beautiful. It's really moving. My least favorite track is Never Let Me Down. I don't think this is bad, like, at all. I just don't like Jay-Z.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I think this track's great. I love the like vocals and the vocal in the sample, like that high pitched stuff. It kind of sounds like the whole song is the chorus. It's gorgeous, but I will agree with you. Jay-Z sucks. I have never heard a Jay-Z project, but he is the most personality lacking like hip hop artist I have ever heard. It is insane.
But yeah, like Jay-Z's boring feature combined with the J Ivy spoken word at the end that's really dull to me. I this is like there's too many stuff in this. Basically, how I picked my least favorite track was I looked through which ones did I have anything bad to say about, and it was this one. Even though I
it
do
was
love
a numbers thing. It was a
yeah, it
numbers
really
thing.
was. And yeah, overall, I'd give this a decent to strong recommend. The closer to strong, I think it isn't quite as distinctive and unique as Kanye will become. Like, I think even as you get into his worst stuff, he's so out there. I think this is still a very normal album. Like, this is coming out next to people like, Common, Talib Kweli. Like, this kind of album was more normal and it's amazing and formative, but I don't think Kanye's fully found himself yet. But again, we see there's such a youth to this album, such a vibrance. Like, the last track, Last Call, it's so fun just hearing him ramble for 6 minutes and be funny. And it's just wonderful. Like, yeah, it's an amazing album. So awesome. So that just about finishes out the college dropout discussion. I think we've ticked all the boxes.
I think all of those boxes are ticked.
Yep. So next week we'll be covering Late Registration, which I'm super excited for. This is originally going to be both of these albums discussed in one episode, but we just had so much to say about Late Registration, and we didn't want to underservice the Kanye retrospective, right?
I know.
It's got to be done.
We've gone on about this one for long enough, so the next one deserves its own episode as well.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, if you're listening on YouTube, give the video a like and subscribe if you want more, or you can follow us on like Spotify and is it Sprout? Buzzsprout? Yeah, Buzzsprout, Google Podcasts. We're on a few, podcast streaming services.
Literally can't fucking escape us.
We're omnipresent. And if you want updates or fun shit like that, we're on Instagram and Twitter at Minority Arts Podcast with an underscore between each word on Instagram. But don't worry about that. The links are in the description below anyway. Or if you're streaming this somewhere, I don't know, just go on Instagram and search us. Anyway, thanks for listening. I hope you're all staying safe out there in these weird times.
Yeah, good luck everyone. Thanks very much for listening.
Awesome. We'll see you next week.
Bye.